Mhm. Can you just bring the GBS? Rob, can you unmute and check in?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, couldn't hear you. I'm here now.
All right, and Alan, we can see, I mean, Rick, we can see you. Can you just acknowledge if you can hear us?
I am here. I thought I'd unmute and unvideo me. I'm in a car, so I don't think the video is going to be too sweet.
Right.
And I may go back to my name
That's good.
if you don't mind.
Nope,
Drive safely.
it's a haunting view. All right, thank you. So we have a short agenda. We'd have a motion for approval of the minute of November 15th, 2022. That was sent out by everybody.
No move. Second.
So that was moved by Phil and seconded by Alan. All in favor, any discussion, corrections or omissions? Okay, so that being said, motion to accept and seconded, all in favor, Alan Reinhardt,
Aye.
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Rob Rainey,
Aye.
Ed Gillum,
Aye.
Bill Smith,
Aye.
and Chair says aye. Thank you. Ken Bogran is not on, so I don't think we're gonna be having any updates on roads, and taking projects or encroachments. And the same goes for item number 5, Patrick Reed, the transportation planner, who's given his notice. But before he leaves, we certainly want to get updates on projects that we had talked with him about. So I will send him a message asking for that. I'll send him an email, not a message. The two issues, item number 4, which was Franklin Street and Stone Alley. Basically, that was on for Ken to give us updates. If anything's changed, the last we heard a couple of meetings ago was at Franklin Street. The town was into some sort of discussions with some abutters about some possible land actions. And so that was all going on in negotiations, so we don't know if that's gone anywhere. And then Ginger Andrews did not get to appear. She had a conflict at the initial onset of putting in this item on the agenda. So she sent a letter and she was going to, I thought she was going to be here this evening, but this afternoon, obviously not. But as far as I know, she still has a vested interest in wanting that to be on the takings list and to make sure that it's open to not only her, but the public. Vehicle wise from Orange Street down to the steps and then the steps down onto Union Street. Anybody have anything on that?
With regard to Franklin Street, this is coming from the Cemetery Commission. The issue is that there's no parking for either Old North or New North cemeteries, other than there are 4 spaces on Franklin Street. But unfortunately, because it's a private road, there are vehicles that have been there for the last 2 years that haven't moved. There's a Land Rover that's there, and so essentially it blocks off any parking for either of the 2 cemeteries. So that was the sort of origin as to why why that could on there. So
One of those vehicles is a neighbor's across the street's vehicle. I think he's just left it there, or maybe it moves and comes back. I don't know.
2 years ago, I called the police because this is back
Because
when
you thought it was public.
we thought it was a public road. The police came out, they, I don't know what they did. I think they even actually had the vehicle towed because it had been there for like, I don't know how many weeks. I had recorded it. So anyway, that was, so as I understand it, and talking with Ken Bogran, as you say, they're negotiating with one of the neighbors along the way. I think that issue came up because the town always thought it was a public way. They had maintained it, they plowed the snow and all that sort of thing, until the guy down at the end of the street, I believe it was him closest to North Liberty, put in some curbing
Yeah.
because people were parking on his property.
That encroached out into the
Yeah.
layout, yeah.
So anyway, that's the, if we can get that taken by the town, and I assume that they're working on whatever they need to resolve with the
Yeah.
neighbor, that will at least provide 3 or 4 parking spaces for the cemeteries.
Okay, so, my thought is that we'll just, add all of both of these locations onto next month's agenda and see if we can get updates. For those, the very reasons we've talked about today.
Right, it's been on the agenda for a couple of years and, well, for a year anyway, I think. And that's why we put it on the agenda for to have Ken, if he's available, come in and give us an update.
And I think that, with a lot of the town folks having conflicts for meeting times, I think on the invite, I'm gonna say, if you can't be there in person, please give us a memo so we don't keep beating us to death and going nowhere. So, we've asked some questions and we need to put answers to it so that folks that have asked us, it doesn't look like we're not paying attention, so. All right, anything further on that, Ed?
It's not on that, but on another road. And I confess, I don't have enough information myself because I'm forgetting where it was. I was going down a road that I think I go down often. over in the bad weather. And all of a sudden I noticed there was a sign saying it's a private road. But I never knew it to be a private road.
Yeah.
And,
Oh.
I tell you where it was, excuse me, I do remember what it was Pilgrim Road.
Yeah,
It's Pilgrim Road off a cliff.
right.
Is that a private road? I noticed a new sign. I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing that sign.
I believe that it is. I remember looking at it years ago, back when old, whatever the
Westmore Farm.
Yeah, the farm was-
Field of Dreams was down there, right?
um. I don't know.
But they have it, I believe, on the Cliff Road side,
Mhm.
marked private.
Yeah.
And I never realized it was private, that part of the road.
Yeah.
Cause I know it becomes public later on.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure and I wanted to do some research on that.
Yeah.
The best way to do that would be what?
To go to the
Town clerk?
tax maps. And it'll tell you who owns every parcel.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
But how do you find out whether it was private or public road?
Well, on the town GIS website, there is a town road ownership map. That this is showing as town road. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what it's showing right now.
Right, okay.
So I'm gonna,
Interesting.
I just thought that might merit some research, because it's actually becoming, it's always been a
Yeah.
cut through road anyway, and it's being
Lisa
developed.
Appice is gonna be joining us. So I put up Pilgrim Road on the screen here. Got so much crap on my screen.
Go to the other end of it.
To the other end.
Yeah. The Cliff Road side of it. Keep pulling it. Yes,
West, that's
pull it.
right.
On the Cliff Road side, coming down. You're almost there, to the left, to the west, to the left. All right.
I
Keep going.
don't have a, let me do this.
Okay, there's Pilgrim Road. To
Okay,
the,
right in the corner there?
a little bit further over than the blue, obviously, but yeah, right. See where it says Pilgrim Road and Cliff, the
Yeah.
intersection, the T junction,
Right in here?
right there. There's a sign on there now. And there's a lot of developmental work going on,
Right.
with the properties there.
Well,
Yes.
actually, it's an interesting point, because I believe. Isn't that where? So the house right where the cursor is right now. Is that the location where they filled in some land and then they put a cottage there? That was
No,
the next one over.
no, it's right more where your hand, the hand of the cursor is right now. It's right there.
All right, that's
They moved the house back and they created it was a small sliver of land, but they created it into a bigger building lot
right.
in 84.
And they put a second one right next, so they got two.
Right, those houses don't exist exactly where they are at 84 and 39 there.
So, yeah, so that road now, since they've been doing all that work. All the water sheets out that property
It's a terrible shape right now, yeah.
down into Cliff Road,
But,
and
but it says now it has a sign saying private
Yeah.
road right there for some reason. Which would mean why.
Yeah.
If we wanted town to do something about the hole there in the thing,
Right,
it
yeah.
needs to be a public road.
we'll have to look to see Pilgrim Road.
But Rob said he's looked into it and it says town on the GIS, so that's why it's,
One of the long-term projects of this committee was to get a definitive list
Right.
of the public and private ways.
right,
And it seems like at every turn, it's been years. And every time we think we get there,
we started at the west end, so we have a
Yeah,
long way to
yeah.
go before we get.
I know. Well, we're working with Nathan Porter to determine
Right,
which roads, because he's not the arbiter really, but he's the one who has to figure out these maps.
he's the one who has to do the overlays and
Yeah.
plug everything in, the information. I was wondering, the DBW though should have some sort of a map of what roads they take care of as public roads, wouldn't you think?
Oh, no, I've got it on here, so check it out.
That's how we found that You know, Franklin Street was on that list as a public way. And all of a sudden we find out as a result of a lawsuit, well, maybe it isn't a public way.
So Rob,
The town didn't take certain roads.
is that under
correct?
themes?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is that under themes on that application that it would show?
No, you have to go to a totally different map. So if you go to the town website, on the front page of the town website, there's a button for GIS maps.
Yeah,
If you click on that, you have a whole bunch of choices of different maps to pull up. And
Oh, okay.
down near the bottom, there's one that says road ownership or something like that. And
okay,
it shows on there it shows public roads, it shows private roads, and it shows, everything that Nathan Porter has put together as far as who owns what, but some of them I would caution are not correct, because I've looked up some of them where, somebody said it's town or private one way or the other, and it's the other way around. So it's pretty accurate, but there's no definitive place to go to figure out what's a town road and what's not.
okay,
And the town didn't take certain roads correctly back in the 50s and
Yeah.
all from town meetings. So there's
Right,
certain-
and there's also roads where people have always thought they were public and they're private and vice versa, so.
all right, I'm gonna,
Hey, Bill,
oh, hi.
if you can. Sorry about the delay in logging in. I had a bad address that I kept in my file. I should have had the correct one. I just to echo what Alan has said, Rob, we're very familiar with that map, and we're familiar with the fact that it's got a lot of errors in it. That's what we've been trying to find a way to correct. And yes, probably the best list of addresses is the fire department, but they only care about addresses. They don't care about road ownership. I think there's been a desire in the DPW for several years now to correct that list of public versus private, and then of course to bring the map up to date.
Yeah, and unfortunately, one of the only ways I've found to really know for sure is to look up on the deed and see if there's a plan, and if the plan shows that it's bordered by a public way or private way or whatever, then that's what you go by. But often there's not that description there, so it's hit or miss.
It's all every deed too. Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly-
Yeah. And sometimes you luck out with a land court plan that says right on it, public way or private way, as on the roadway there, but sometimes not. So,
Okay. Who knew that Josiah Barrett would still be with us after all these years?
yeah.
All right, so does anybody have anything else on the takings, possible takings, Franklin Street, Stone Alley? I just got an email in from the DPW, and if we have any questions for them, Picaro will answer them. Stephen is out for the rest of the month and obviously wouldn't be able to come here today, so he's going to be out at least until our next meeting. So if we have something, we'll submit it through her to the DPW. Okay, and just for your knowledge, neither Ken Bogran or Patrick Reed are able to be here today. So as if you've been reading the local papers and the electronic versions, you'll know that the Wawanet bike path is forth and on the front of a lot of people's minds. So even though it hasn't been part of any meetings since 2015-ish or so, the letter writing campaign has started. So I sent, the one that I got initially, I bicycled to all of them, our board members. Since then, I've gotten a bunch more. So what I'm going to do is combine them all into one PDF. And I'll include them, a link to that with Lee, but I also will check with Eric or somebody to see, you know, if we can't get that as a packet installed, so that it will live out there, we can refer to it. So if somebody wants to see what the correspondence is, it's there.
When is the first meeting? I forget that it's before the selectmen, or has that already been last week?
They discussed it at the last selectmen's
But
meeting.
not much, yeah. I don't think.
And from what I recollect, what they did was they just agreed to have consultant or somebody start the process of the review and looking at designs and there's
So they're proceeding with the
yeah,
implementation of
it's
the,
on,
okay,
it's on the top September hit list to be done.
What started this was that, well, first of all, they got a grant. There was some federal money.
right.
And so the plan has been around for years. I think
77, they
since
said.
the seventies,
Yeah,
it was the
77.
first, design. And I've read all the letters. There must have been 40 or more. I mean, the first wave was from all the people who will win it, saying, no way, path to nowhere, all that stuff. And then the more recent ones are people who live there and say, it definitely needs to be done, and that sort of thing. So it's an interesting question. I know it's a very dangerous road to drive.
People on Pocomo Road are also weighing in on it
Yeah,
as
I
well,
know.
because
It also is.
maybe that only needs to go so far, you
The
know.
land acquisition has changed ownership there so that there seems to be a bunch of folks lining up, willing to grant easements or right of ways or whatever.
Mhm.
So I think it's gonna take on a life of its own, and it's not something that's gonna just zip through. There'll be multiple hearings.
Right.
That's,
I would, the way I'm kind of getting a sense of the meeting from the letters I'm reading them, which are more majority against than for, is that, and the federal money is actually teed into the fact that it's supposed to go to the end of the road. That's
Right.
the federal. Now, what happens if there's a compromise and it goes to Pocomo Road, for instance? And no further, it's the federal government's money, then I'd like to see the grant itself, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It'd be nice to see the language of the grant. Because if they get the money anyway, even if they do half the project, then maybe it's worth doing half the project and never doing any more for them, but who knows?
My understanding is that the purpose of the grant is to connect, the federal lands. Of course, there's a gap between the end of the road.
Right.
How you get out, it's another mile.
And the lighthouse, right, to the trustees and
Yeah,
yeah.
so anyway.
Yeah.
And it seems as though with bike paths, I mean, we've talked about bike paths on this committee for years. And, when you look at some of the other areas that need them, down to Tom Nevers, for example, that's been on the books for a long time. And most of these plans for bike paths have been around for a while. And it's just sort of been, as funding has become available. Mike Burns was quite good at getting those before us, or before the town, I should say. Also
Right.
before us to weigh in on.
Well, there used to also be funds available from development, subdivision development, where they would do offsets to a bike path rather than do an interior
Exactly.
bike path to a subdivision. And I remember there was a lot of opposition, quite frankly, to the Cisco bike path, that it was not making it, it was not of the rural nature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other way to do a bike path, as you know, is to widen the road and create a bike path as part of the road, which I don't think people have wanted that either. Though. I mean, I think the smaller road keeps a rural character better. Perhaps if you could push the bike path off.
Also keeps the speed down. 'Cause
Right.
Many are.
But people use a bike path is a passing lane.
I mean, the best,
Sometimes.
the best, traffic abatement for speed is, giant potholes. Which we seem to be ahead of the game on that.
Well, that's what finally got Boulevard and all those roads done.
Yeah,
Does this committee get involved at any point
Some
in
people
those
don't want the roads paved. either.
deliberations?
Oh, yeah,
Do we make a recommendation?
yes.
Yeah.
Basically, that's our only authority as a committee, the Roads and Right of Way Committee. The only power we have is to make recommendations to the select board. And we've been, I would say, very successful over a number of years at getting their attention, getting their, focused on the projects, the downtown sidewalks, for example. That was a 3-year project that our committee worked on. And finally, the town put aside $5 million or $1 million a year for
5 years, right?
And we're seeing that now.
so of the 21 or so that we got as a committee, I replied to each one of the folks. A lot of them seem to have this be their first venture into dealing with town process and procedure. So I explained to them, and I gotta tell you, I did a boilerplate kind of thing so that everybody got the same info. But I explained the charge of Roads and Right of Ways Committee by the Select Board is to review any issues concerning the status, access of public roads, private roads, roads of way, abutters way, Pirates Road, footpath, and any other ways through the town and the county, and make recommendations that we were, we weren't a deciding authority, we were just an advice authority. I gave them a link to the town website that has an area set up with the current Walnut Path plan that's on the town website. And then also suggested that they sign up for notices so they can get agendas and meeting notices. And I said, just don't do one board because it's gonna be multiple boards weighing in on this. So anyway, that's the standard reply I'm given when we keep getting them. Ed?
Well, they gave you kind of the standard reply as well. When they originally wrote from the Wawinut Landowners Association, they started off with their charter and their
Yeah.
mission. So it's kind of.
Do we
everybody's dictating
In
their own.
previous instances where we were asked for a recommendation, do we have sort of guidelines as to what we take into consideration?
It depends. One of the things that we do is recommend taking of ways. And we have there's a matrix of different criteria that we look for in a private road. Does it connect to public ways? So, there's a whole list of items that we look for in making the decision as to whether we're going to recommend it to the selectmen or not. So we discuss it among ourselves here in the committee and make a recommendation based on that.
But that's for taking in roads, that's not for bike paths.
Well,
And then what I'm asking is, do we have in the past, when we have made a recommendation for a bike path, we say there are 4 elements that we consider. Make it up.
We've actually been operating off the playbook that's already been presented, right? The bike paths and the path. We haven't like created new bike path plans ever.
No, I'm just saying, are there certain criteria that
No.
we take it, is there, does it connect
Yeah,
Does it have a reason to be or?
Exactly.
I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna pick on, Rick and Alan's, data bank and see if we can get that matrix. And then get it out to everybody,
Okay, I mean, I just think that
so we can at least start off with
at
it.
least we know that
Yeah.
these are the elements
Right.
that we should be considering rather than it's just people's personal preference.
Right.
Or maybe we should create a matrix.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't,
I
I don't
don't
think
know.
it exists. I think. the
Yeah, I mean,
matrix is
maybe
roads,
that's something,
not
you know, that would be
bypass.
some piece of work for this year to say, okay, what are the elements of, how we should look at a bike path?
A good example is the old railroad path that goes from around the Council Springs. That the way it's up the roadway, basically the train roadway was there. So our committee made a recommendation. This was 20 years ago. It was about putting a bike path there. And again, we went through the same process. We said, okay, it connects, it takes bicycle traffic off of these, Francis Street and all those, the tight spots. And we had a list as far as that recommendation. So the town took that under advisement. They sought funding, they got a grant, and that's really what created that bike path. But again, it was out of our recommendation.
Well, I guess I would like to suggest that you and you get whatever you can dig out from the archives. And that we as a committee will try to come up with what we think. So it's not just this bike path,
Right.
it's any bike path.
Lee's got his hand up. Lee?
The taking spreadsheet has been sent to you on several occasions. Bill, it's the Excel spreadsheet. Across the top of the columns, there's a row with the different criteria. And it wouldn't be hard to take those criteria for taking a private road and converting them to the need for a bike path. It goes to a destination, it connects federal land. There's a potential use by the public. Or what are the abutters feel? We know what they feel about Wowinet. They don't like it. But we do have a lot of people who go out there, both Nantucketers and visitors. Squamish Swamp, the community sailing, what am I trying to say? The community sailing launching site, and then on into the parking area, Wowinet, and then walking up into Great Point. So there's a lot of use of it, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people on bicycle. But we do have to accept the fact that the residents are not very fond of it. So in terms of the spreadsheet, if you need it again, Bill, I'll send it to you. But I'm pretty
Okay.
sure you have it.
All right, I will
Needs to be adapted though.
dig
Let's
through.
add it to the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got it in my computer somewhere.
Okay.
It needs to be added.
And
Adapted
so as soon as I get
bikes.
to either my closet here or Lee or Alan's closet, I'll get it out to the board. So everybody has a thing.
In all the bike path projects that we've been involved with, we're the ones who recommended going up Mill Hill, connecting down when we're trying to connect the two bike paths, the Mattocket bike path and the Myatomic bike path. And we laid out a route, and that's one of the things that Mike Burns had been working on before he left, there's a plan, I think they even, well, I don't know if they have money set aside, but,
There was some development money set up for a portion of it, but I don't think it was.
but every bike path that we've been involved with, we've always had a recommendation, and our recommendations are always based on whatever the situation, we do take a look at the situation and we look at why a bike path would be
Well, if
needed.
we had this criteria, it would just.
Right.
How do I raise my hand?
And perhaps,
When you were behind.
Maybe not. I think they heard you.
Hello?
Oh.
it is that time of day. Oh, where you
I
are.
don't know what school you're at,
Hey,
Lee,
Bill,
but I want a one bubbler, just like you have.
hey, Bill, it's Rick.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he knows.
Unfortunately, Rick, for you, but fortunately for us, we got to see, Lee in his classroom with his very unique water bottle that he has.
What do you mean if I speak, you want to see me?
No.
Hey, there we go.
So,
I thought I'd give you 2 cents. It's gonna-
Ed,
Could we, along this idea of bike paths, might we go back to the records in 1977 or whenever these bike paths were created and figure out why they decided they wanted those bike?
Yeah,
paths
that's
put in
right.
order
That's
at
all.
that
It's a
time?
distillation of,
Yeah.
it's a distillation and an organization of the.
Why do we have it all?
The committees,
Right, that's a
the committee's
Yeah.
deliberations,
Right.
and obviously each one is its own unique thing, but I think so that we don't appear to be arbitrary and stuff, that we have sort of, 5 basic elements that we consider. And actually, the people who make comments could address those 5 elements. So anyhow, why don't we move on? But I mean, we've told this,
yeah.
we've
all right,
debated this to
The
death.
first step will be to get the thing and get it there, Lee.
Again, just very quickly to Ed's comment. We had to file environmental impact assessments for those bike paths. And I'm sure those assessments are being the files of the planning department.
Okay.
Nice, okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, I think we beat that to death.
All right. Hey, Bill, let me try and say one thing, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just remind us all that, I live on Squam, I'm not on Wallwinnet, but just be alert that when you drive into Wallwinnet, there's no beach access. There's no facilities. All there is an air pump. And anybody who rides their bike out there has to walk a mile to have beach access, just to put it in perspective. And that doesn't mean you don't do it. I'm not sure the answer here, but I want to make
Well,
sure
Rick-
everybody understands that. Thank you.
Rick, these are the elements that if we have a, set of elements, this would be one of the points.
Exactly. So I'll sign back off now and continue my driving.
Watch out for the deer.
He had to say that because his neighbors are watching.
Well, we're coming after you with Squam next, Rick, so.
So,
Otherwise, we take a left down.
He's getting worried. He wants-
To the windsurfing beach.
time before.
Go down, and then go down to, yeah, we'll make a loop around.
Preemptive.
All right, so. The next item, there's a couple of them that are ongoing in the public way monument project. And Stephen and Alan were looking to come up with a time frame to do that. But there was a couple things just to refresh everybody's memory. One was a bunch of the monuments seem to have gone to some college dorm or something, but they're not on true fairgrounds. So there was looking to see where those were. And then the other thing would be to try to come up with a date that the DPW could install a couple of these. So I'm assuming that's still ongoing.
It is still ongoing. I meet with the DPW as, I chair the cemetery commission. We meet at the DPW, so I see them on a regular basis. And I remind them
Are they
that,
stepping stones outside the door or something, these monuments?
Well,
The ones in the ground, where are they?
the frustrating thing is, we had, I believe there were 7 or 8 of the flush monuments, the 12 by 12, public way monuments. And they had been there. I would stop and just check them out and periodically and so on. And then the last time I checked, they were gone. The upright monuments are there. Of course, those things weigh about 500 pounds.
They're hard to carry.
So in asking around, someone said that the place where they're stored behind Two Fairgrounds is controlled by Charlie Gibson. And that they mentioned, this was, I think, Ray Sylvia at the DPW said, check with,
Cameras.
check with Charlie and see if there is a camera to see if they would, anything would show up. And so I haven't talked with Charlie.
May I make a suggestion that we put a sort of a time frame on when this gets done, so it doesn't continue meeting after meeting, just talking about it?
Let's see,
I mean, is it fair to say that we'd like to have this all done, before the end of May? I mean,
Well,
Oh, yeah, might have to make them again.
We're giving ourselves 5 months.
I think the first thing was looking at the list and saying, okay, let's do A, B, or C,
Mhm.
and then go from there.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
I think, I would certainly think by the time we get into, when visitors are coming, that it'd be done. Or certain acts, certain things get done.
Might have to reach out for, might need to make new ones, right?
Well, remember, we're dependent now on the DPW putting these in the ground. The 36 of them that we did put in the ground up to this point, we did ourselves. We enlisted assistants. We had Dave Visco with his Bobcat. And that's how we lifted them into place and, all that sort of thing.
Much more informal days those days.
We got things done back then, but nowadays trying to work,
The process.
today.
Well, if we don't have any objectives, we're gonna have to push the DPW, and it's pretty easy not to push them, so.
Yeah, well, that's why we kept it on the agenda to remind.
how about if we revisit that, I'll call you, Alan, we'll revisit that list and say, let's try for A, B, and C.
Mhm.
And then, it sounds like Stephen's gonna be out for the rest of the month.
And work with the monuments we have, that we
Yeah.
know we got.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
we're
obviously,
the ones we
there's
know we don't
No
know.
small ones, only the upright, so,
Right.
um,
And the small ones, all you say is public way.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know why you take it to your dorm room. It doesn't have a map and then bucket or anything, but I got a feeling they're in
Okay.
someone's yard.
so, we'll do that.
Stepping
And
stones.
dovetailing with that, remember back, several months ago, the Sconset Civic Association, Sconset Homeowner Association, came to us, with neighbors' concerns about the footpath. And, so we actually, heard from them, went out and did a site walk. A couple of us had done a site walk to revisit the place. And we came up with, if I have it with me or not. Yeah, we came up with, some possible action items. And so, so Ed, Alan, and, Nat. I'm assuming you guys haven't had a chance, to button down a date. I know you guys are looking for.
Individually, we've done stuff, but not as a group.
For what,
The Sconset Bluff path.
I was
Right.
out there last week. I
Right.
mean, I'm out there at least once a month walking the path. There is, by the way, one area, I believe it's at number 30, whatever, where they have extended their garden right to the edge, so it's about a foot on the footpath.
And well, that comes under the item of number 5 here on our list, identify encroachments.
Mhm.
Well, you need a survey to be able to identify the encroachment too, perhaps, so.
Yeah.
It's a path where it's supposed to be, has it been moved over the years?
Well, that's the thing, you know, there's, you know, trying to get,
But if it's a new homeowner, there will be a plot plan, perhaps recorded.
exactly, and
So,
that's what we need to rely on, because
So
trying
I'll
to get.
send out, I'll resend out the Sconset Bluff review possible steps list.
Cause this is similar to the Wawinnet one, you know, you create something and then they will come, and that's the whole reason there's a complaint here is that. It exists and then
So.
it's now being used more heavily than they
The
like.
items for the work group to review was the 2010 committee report, the current sign verbiage, existing marker locations, path maintenance, and reported issues. And we came up with 5 possible action items. One was update sign verbiage. One was increased sign location. One was increased maintenance. Survey of the path and identify encroachment.
There was one further one I will add to that was enforcement.
Yeah, and that's really.
That's where that's where it really comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think the thought being was,
And some of them were willing to pay for private enforcement.
some of these, wouldn't cost, a great deal of agina, updating the sign verbiage, and increasing sign locations. It appears the maintenance of the DPW, from what we've heard from the neighbors there, are very pleased with the maintenance that the DPW is doing. They went to great lengths to say that, you know, they'd come down and would cut brush back and whatever, so.
There might be one further thing on here as well and it could come under the auspices of enforcement perhaps, is the time of use. Remember, that was an issue, and we at one time talked about perhaps suggesting that it follow the time of use after the big debate over the playground down below, at Codfish Park, because the neighbors there had pushed back, finally got the playground, got extended playground, then there's a time. They, you know, because dusk to dawn is really relative, and, you know, we might actually have to put like a time to a time, basically, without, you know.
Okay, so I'll put that on the thing, I'll send it to everybody, so everybody has the same.
Would there also be something regarding fencing or whatever? Because one of the issues was that people were trespassing.
They shouldn't be trespassing, and that could
But
come
that
up,
was one of the
that could have
complaints.
come under signage.
That was one of the complaints that they said people were
Fencing it might
going onto
destroy
their
the nature
property.
of it somewhat, don't you think?
Yeah, one of the problems is that, you know,
No.
people, there are some people who are always gonna be jerks, and they're gonna do something stupid, and they're gonna, you know, whatever. And that's where the complaints come from. I would estimate that the majority of people who walk the Sconset path are responsible, and they're enjoying the view and that sort of thing. But
So to echo what Phil was saying, maybe not fencing, but maybe again, under signage. This is private property, once you cross this line kind of area, and also they didn't like the fact that there were big groups starting to use it. I
Mhm.
think the group issue was also, I mean, the person doing the yoga on someone's front lawn, well, of course, was an issue, but that's kind of like,
Mhm.
maybe. There's gonna be people who are gonna trespass.
Well, I
and
think,
trespass.
in reviewing the verbiage, there's just some totally unrealistic verbiage on the current sign. That's just wasn't enforceable then, it's not gonna be enforceable now. And I think it only fuels the angst by it being there, and people say, oh, you know, you're against the rules here. I mean, for example, no use of cell phone. Well, yeah, good luck trying to enforce.
Well, that was another time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In 2010, people perhaps
And,
didn't use it much.
you know, no baby carriages. So. It opens up all kinds of issues trying to tell somebody that. You can't go to the path with a baby. So anyway, there's just some things. And,
Back great baby, right?
I think that, you know, we might be able to,
You took our kids.
I think we want to show the people that
Could
are.
could this little committee maybe meet with the people who, I know there was one lady who was making the presentation, meet and try to craft the solutions together so that it's not, yeah, so that they don't keep coming back to us and they accept what's reasonable and, you know, I mean, they're not crazy people. They understand what's feasible and come in a collaborative way so that it's not all on us.
Well, it's not on us. It's really on the town. It is a public way, and that's the very basis of the fact that it was given to the town as a public way. The town took it, accepted it. There's no question it's a public way. So as far as enforcing good behavior, that's always a challenge, regardless of what it is we're trying to do. When we initiated this project, we had a subcommittee. We had Deanne Atherton and Harvey Young and several of the other committee members met with people who lived on the path. And it took a year and a half to kind of work out the details.
Well, we might have to update that meeting though, because that was 2010. Granted, there'll be a very different owner. I mean, a lot of people have been there forever, but there are a lot of new owners out there that have not been there. And a lot of the new owners have different expectations, especially the levels they buy their property at. And, and they have their own way of, I mean, there was an offer to our private enforcement, just like they do at Lincoln Circle at night, so people don't have bonfires on the beach.
They have people at Lincoln Circle?
Some of the neighbors there at night pay, I believe it's an off-duty police for different people to basically patrol and make sure that people don't go and have bonfires on the beach in front of their property, supposedly.
And that started when the family up at the top hired a cop to keep people from going down the stairs. And we said, wait a minute.
Anyhow, I think your committee that could be even more productive.
Right.
I think, so.
Of course, they're only here in the summer. Yeah, you're right.
They can Zoom.
Right, you're right.
So this room is double booked.
Well,
So
that means we're,
instead of the group using the other room like we did, they've been scheduled for this room also.
well, we're pretty much finished with
Yeah.
our business.
So,
True, I thought Peter came in.
He
yeah,
did.
they're in the other room over there.
He's in the waiting room.
So,
He's gonna be-
I'm actually gonna work that out, bring this up with,
Gotcha.
Erica, because. You know,
Well, it keeps the meeting moving along.
well, no, but we run into a conflict and if,
Right,
we-
right.
you know, if we had butters and stuff in there now, it's kind of tough to kick them out.
Right, time to go.
Time to go.
But now Ginger's here for that meeting, but.
He could come and join our meeting.
There we go.
So, anyway,
All
I
right.
think that was it for all the agenda items. Everybody have anything to bring up new? Okay, so I will get out the items.
When do people's terms come up for renewal?
Our dates are on the, if you go to the,
What is when does the select board do the renewals? What
You go
month,
on-
what
go on
month of the
the,
year?
June.
June.
So that's what I'm getting at.
Right, it's May or June? June? Is that what it is? Yeah.
I know the election is in May. It's before the town meeting, which is in May sometime.
Hey,
And I believe the appointments, actually, I'm not sure about the appointments. And
I just raise it because I imagine there's some people.
yeah,
You'll feel late. There's a complete rundown on committee selections on the website. Essentially, they divide the committees into two. uh, alphabetically A through K, L through Z, and set 2 dates. Applications due for the first group sometime in May, and then the second group, end of May, early June. And 2 weeks after that, the select board gives applicants a chance to talk to them. And then they have a grand meeting sometime in June, because the start of the committees is July 1st.
We got 2 members.
Oh, in the fiscal year.
Bill's term and Nat's term are both up 2023.
So it starts me with the fiscal year, July 1st, then, okay.
So Nat and I would have to reapply, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ask for donations from their fellow board
And
members.
forgiveness for whatever.
For
might-
donating your time.
Okay, so that being said.
Dispensation.
Oh, I should make note that the next 3 Rutro meeting are gonna be Zoom only. February, March, and April will be Zoom only. It was stated in today's agenda and,
So you're in Florida.
yeah, and, so that's the skinny on that. And one last look around the room. Anybody have anything? Lee, you all set?
Let's just make sure that the recording is circulated quickly. I had a few minutes trouble logging in at the beginning, and so I've missed the beginning of the meeting. I think I've got attendance. Who's not attending? Nat Lowell's not attending. Anybody else?
Yeah, so,
Snooki.
yeah, Snooky's not here,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
but everybody else is.
Nat,
Pardon?
Nat's not here.
Yeah, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
we
Yeah,
did
I
say,
got that.
yeah, Snooky, Nat. All right, all that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
One last
Oh,
question,
one last thing,
Pripperel is, you said we were gonna try to lasso in, Patrick Reed before he takes off. I mean, do we have an idea that if he's even gonna be on board by the time of our next meeting?
No, he's quit.
I think he's finished, right?
Yeah, but he's still here next week, and he's given an update to, the plus department or whatever on project, so at the very least, I'm gonna ask him to give us some sort of a memo
So you can read it the next meeting.
so we can enter it.
That's what I was thinking, he wasn't
Yeah,
gonna
we'll put it
be
in the
here.
packet.
Yeah, okay.
I wanna really institute the thing with a packet so that the agenda's there and the documentation so that it makes it easier for us going forward. Once again, we have a motion to adjourn. Alan,
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
second by Ed. The dreaded roll call. Alan Reinhardt,
Aye.
Lee Saperstein,
Hi,
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Bill Smith,
aye.
and Ed Gillum, Rob Rainey.
Aye.
And Chair says aye, so that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for coming out in the snow and sleet tonight. It's not really that way, Lee, we're just trying to make you feel
I
better.
think Lee is proceeding to dinner.
Yeah. All right,
it's
thank you.
Gala night.
Is that pre-gaming you're doing, or is that the end of the night?
All right, thank you.
But we stopped with it. But I should have said we should have been out first. when we said that.
I wonder where he is.
University.
About 300 miles east of Halifax.
What did he say is? It's not in England.
Oh, no, he's underway. He's on a ship.
Yeah.
It's a cruise ship.